Assalamu alaikum. It is time to work out. It is time to choose your workout routine. I'm really excited for this module, and inshallah, bismillah, let's dive in to choosing your workout routine. Our best month one workout routines, our best 10 workout routines for beginners, advanced, muscle growth, fat loss, etc. Choosing yours. So of course we have the exercise one-on-one section where we go into an in-depth analysis of the principles behind working out, all the different types, answer all your questions, and then you can also ask questions further inside of the community in the course. But what we're going to cover today is a summarized version of some of the main concepts from exercise 101 that are relevant for today's discussion in choosing your routine. We're also going to talk about the differences and commonalities between beginners and advanced when choosing a workout routine. So the most basic principle that's further even summarized, even from the summarized thing, is you always want to start basic and small because you could always make it more big and complex later down the road, versus if you start big and complex and then you can't stick with it or it's too complex, it's kind of hard to like scale back down to basic and small per se if you already have momentum with these. So the point being, start basic and small, you can always increase very easily thereafter. So err on the side of like less frequent workouts, less long workouts, etc. within the different routines I'm going to provide. And then of course we'll teach you how to customize ongoing in this month and beyond, inshallah. We're also going to talk in lesson 1 about the results, longevity, fat loss versus muscle growth, differences, commonalities, some basic principles, of course, so that you have a foundation when we go into the routines themselves. We're going to talk about how to choose how often you're going to work out, how to account for your equipment needs and the different people on the spectrum between zero equipment to full equipment and everything in between, and how that determines which routine to choose as well. And then once you understand the pros and cons, we're going to go through all the routines. We're going to walk through them. I'm going to give you some commentary on them in lesson 2. Then in lesson 3, we're going to go through the common patterns, trends, and the logic behind them. Lesson 4, we're going to talk about how to adjust these routines within your first month of the course and beyond, inshallah, and how to get support as well for like adjusting and customizing your routine to you, which in month 1 is usually where you're going to need the most customization for most people, unless you shift goals later down the road or you hit a plateau, then there's some customization needed as well. And then of course, review and next steps. So the first principle we're going to go into within this first lesson is big versus small. So obviously as a beginner, it's pretty obvious that you need to start small and basic, but I will argue that advanced people should also start basic, but you could go slightly bigger for the beginning. So for instance, I have a couple routine called OG main, and that was kind of like how I used to train back in 2018 before I started a business, before I became a father and husband, everything else, where I just had a lot more time to work out, not for 2 to 3 hours a day per se. That was more like college because I obviously still had like a job. I was still working 60 plus hours a week as a trainer some weeks, but I had more time to kind of hit the gym for longer, which is why the OG main routine is a little bit longer. And if you're somebody who has more time on your hands, like 60 to 90 minutes, these will be great. I mean, you could even get them done in 60, versus the 3 to 4 day time efficient routines are usually like 30 to 45 minutes, but you could even consolidate it further into 20 to 30 minutes. And in the exercise 101, I do talk about how to adjust your routine during times of being very busy and stressed. And if you have further questions on how to modify these things, you could also post to the community, and we could either put together some additional routines on top of the 10 routines for us to release in a mid-month module or the next monthly modules release, or even just answer your question right then and there and give you some adjustments and stuff that you can do, or even get you involved in a deeper form of coaching, or in coaching, which is deeper obviously in the course and community. Now, an advanced person can and still will get results from the 3 to 4 day time efficient, especially if you need to optimize for time efficiency. Let's say you're somebody who's advanced in the gym, but because of life circumstances with work, kids, whatever, you have a lot less time than you used to, so your workouts have been less consistent because you're still trying to hit these mega workouts that you used to hit when you had more time on your hands. Obviously, if that's the case, then you need to do the time efficient one, and you're going to get better results from it because you're going to actually be consistent instead of the ones where you're less consistent. So let's say that back in the day you used to work out 5 times a week, 2 hours a day, but now you find yourself only doing 1 or 2 of those workouts. Instead of doing 1 to 2 2-hour workouts with the intention of doing 5 and getting very lackluster results and gaining weight and losing muscle, what you should do instead is you should do the 3-day time efficient, because then you only have to go 3 times a week for 45 minutes and you'll get better workout, more comprehensive workout, actually hitting every muscle group than, of course, continuing to be inconsistent, only hitting 1 to 2 days of your overly long, unrealistic 5-day routine. This is an extreme example, right? And then likewise, if you never worked out before in your life, or it's been 20 years since you touched a weight or even did a push-up, then of course you should start with 3-day time efficient, or one of the different variations of the body weight version of that, or everything else that you're going to see inside of the, the modules. Now, another big difference between beginner and advanced. So this is a small difference, the big versus small. But the movement selection is a bigger difference. So a beginner should always choose the more basic and non-risky movements. So for instance, you should not be doing barbell squats as a beginner who's only been lifting for a month or 2 or even 3 months, right? Only in really month 3, 4, 5, 6 and beyond do you start really doing barbell squats, as opposed to like goblet squats, which are a lot easier and less risky and don't really load the spine. And by that point, by the time you've been lifting for 2, 3 months, you'll have a lot better foundation. Even after you've been lifting for 1 month or training, if you're doing bodyweight squats and core exercises for 1 month, your core and your spine will be much safer. Your muscular activation control will be much better, which is going to make it a lot safer for you to load the spine with something like barbell squats. Now that being said, though, some people don't even ever need to do barbell squats, and some people could just do goblet squats for the rest of their life. But let's say somebody with chicken legs, probably should do barbell squats or some form of heavy leg exercises to build their legs up. Again, it just depends on the individual. There's a lot of customization that can go into this and complexity, especially past that first month. But of course, some people can keep it super basic for their entire training lifespan. It really just depends on the individual. And if you're not sure, post questions to the group. The more you engage with the community, the better, especially this first month, to really help you get the most out of the program and really get yourself locked in to this course and community program. So anyways, now if you're advanced though, you can do more complex movements like front squats, barbell back squats, but I still advise being conservative because, if you're going to do an exercise that's maybe 10, 20% better, but it has a 300% chance higher risk of injury, that's not really a good, cost to benefit analysis. So it's not really worth the risk. The reward is not really worth the risk. So I always advise being conservative. Remember, we're trying to be healthy and fit into our 70s and beyond, so we can keep worshiping Allah to the fullest of our capacity. And that doesn't require you to be a world-class, world record-hitting deadlifter. So maybe deadlifts, and you'll see that I only have deadlifts on one of the programs. I have deadlift variations on on all of the programs, or most of them, because we should still be working that hip hinge for just functionality and functional strength in the day-to-day life, being able to make ruku safely when you're an old man, etc., by having a strong posterior chain, meaning your back, your glutes, your hamstrings. But that doesn't mean you have to deadlift, maximal weights all the time, if ever. Even just doing some light, stiff leg / Romanian deadlifts can make a difference. So you'll see that within the movement selection as well. And then always get a proper form check from either a friend or from a coach. So again, this course does not come with technique reviews. That's something that our coaching clients get. But we do have all the exercise videos in the exercise library, right? And of course, you could always ascend into coaching, as part of this. And what we might do, if there's a lot of people who really want to do coaching but can't necessarily afford it, who are in this course, again, my number one commitment is to give value to every one of our customers, whether they're in the course or the coaching. So we might introduce like a mid-tier product called just technique review only. And I have some ideas for that we might implement if the demand for it is high enough. So if you guys can't find somebody reliable to review your technique, and you can't afford the coaching for whatever reason, then perhaps let us know, and perhaps we could either do like a one-off technique review just to help you out, or if we're just getting a lot of demand for that to where it's not really realistic for me to pay the coaches all this money to do the technique reviews for people who are just in the course, then we might introduce a mid-tier service that doesn't cost the business money, that still allows us to give you like really quality technique reviews, right? But also, you might have a friend who's knowledgeable in the gym, and there might be a trainer at the local gym. And one little hack you could do too is you could actually just sign up for a personal, like, how most personal trainers at the gym, they'll do like first session for free. So you could do a free first session and have them fix your technique. I had a lot of people use me for that when I was a new trainer, but then I changed the way that I positioned. I stopped doing free sessions even for the first one. It was always like, hey, if you're going to talk to me, you're planning on actually signing up. You're not just here to waste my time for a free session. But the point is, if they are offering free sessions, you could do that, or you could just hire a trainer, or you could just hire us. There's a lot of different options. Anyways, not to go on a huge tangent with that. But for worst comes to worst, always ask questions in the community. We can always help. And again, I could once in a while do like a one-off technique review, or have my technique review coach hop into any of the calls that we have here that come with the course. But if you want consistent, on-demand technique reviews, then definitely join our coaching, and I'll attach a link below this if you want more info on how to get started with that, inshallah, on our next intake. So, and then always check with your doctor for any medical considerations, as always, for everything, both diet and training. Always got to have that disclaimer in any kind of fitness course / recommendation / anything. All right, so now let's talk about intensity. So beginners should use 50 to 60% of what they're capable of or less, okay? This is because you need to master the form first before you go heavy. You need to build your foundations, and as a beginner, you're just starting, so you don't need to lift heavy to get results. All you need to do is do something, and you'll get results. So you might as well milk maximum results out of minimal weights, so you can get the best results possible. Okay. Now, once you're more advanced, you could train more intensely than that, but always be mindful of technique and recovery. And again, I go very deep into this in the Exercise 101 course, which you will also have access to inside of this course right now, month 1, version 1. Even if you're one of my first few clients in this course, you'll have access to it because it's already live inside of the course. And then we'll be launching more modules on that and answering any of your guys' questions. So if you have any questions, just post in the community. We're happy to answer them, inshallah, and do further modules to help yourself and others with those as well, inshallah. If you're a beginner, go with the small time-efficient routines and do that for at least 1 month, but ideally 2 to 3 before you go into the more advanced routines and some of the cool combat sports, martial arts routines I'm going to launch later down the road. Which if you're a beginner, you should probably wait till month 4 to 6 before you do those. But again, we're going to be launching new modules every month, tons of value, tailored to what you guys need. So make sure you ask questions of the community so that we know what modules would be most beneficial to you. And we already have, plenty planned out that we're going to do in addition to the ones that we add based on what you guys need. And then if you're advanced, you can start with the time-efficient routines if you need to optimize for time efficiency, but you can also do the OG main or 5-day advance if you want to do them and if you're able to recover from it. What I say with 5 days, 5 days a lot. Most people can't recover from that unless you're in your 20s or have crazy superhuman recovery abilities, just naturally, genetically, you're really gifted, and you have a lot of time on your hands. So I say 5-day if you insist, but 5 days usually not my first recommendation for anybody unless they're 22, in their prime, good genetics, everything, right? But even your average 22-year-old, college student, even if he's in his prime, if he has average genetics, 5 days might be too much, 4 might be better. Even in college, it's hard for me to train 5 days a week versus 4 was always very sustainable for me, and 3 was easy mode, right? And I actually got great results when I was 19 doing 3 days a week, even in the prime of my growth hormone levels, which is age 19. So 3 will still get you great results. A lot of people have the misconception that more sessions is better, and certainly 2 sessions a week is not enough, right? 2 is maintenance mode, or if you're already if you're a martial artist, you're already sparring twice a day and doing martial arts training twice a day to where the lifting is just to maintain muscle, but you're already doing plenty of other exercise, great. But if you're just, sitting at a desk all day long, not even going for walks, and you only lift 2 times a week, yeah, it's better than doing nothing for sure, but just up it to 3 and you'll get really good results that are they're very close to the results of somebody who does 4. 4 will be slightly better. 5 oftentimes is not really recoverable for most people. But I do have it in there because some of you will want it and will insist, so I have it in there to keep you guys happy. And it's still an optimal 5-day routine, which works well. Just, again, usually 4 is a little more optimal. Now, be smart and strategic. Again, we can always increase the frequency. So if you're like, oh, I really want to start with 5, but when you're saying 4 is better, oh, I really want to start with 5, just start with 4, right? And then you can always up to 5 later. It's in there, right? The 5-day advance is in there. You can always increase to 5 if 4 is too easy for you. But try the 4 for a couple weeks, and you might find that your results are great, and it gives you more time to recover, more time to enjoy life and do things other than working out. So great, right? So err on the side of keeping it basic instead of complex, and err on the side of less frequent instead of more frequent, because again, it's always easier to go up and it's always harder to go down, okay? And any questions you have, post in the community. Let us know, inshallah. So now, some of you might be watching this video and be like, okay, can I skip to module 2 now to learn how to lose fat? I don't care about this muscle growth stuff. Well, remember, driving muscle growth is actually one of the best ways to lose fat. Now, to lose fat, as we talk about in the fat loss triangle module, which you may have seen or you may not have gone through just yet, inside of the intro module, in order to lose fat, if you just lift, but you're not dialed in with diet and your step count, it's not going to work. If you just are dialed in with lifting and step count, but your diet isn't dialed in, you're also not going to lose fat, or it's very unlikely that you're going to lose fat, or if you do, it's going to be very little. If you're dialed in with just strength training and diet, you'll get some great results as far as muscle growth. You might lose some fat. You'll probably recomp, so your waist size will shrink. You'll gain muscle and lose fat at the same time, but you probably won't see the scale go down by that much. Maybe just a little bit of water weight in the beginning. But if you want to lose weight from the scale every single week, consistently, every month losing weight for the next 3 to 6 months before you're even close to hitting a plateau, then you need to be dialed in with diet, steps, and your strength training, okay? Because the strength training keeps your metabolism on point. The steps help you burn a consistent amount of calories per day. Even if your body tries to slow its metabolism down, it keeps your metabolism up and your metabolic rate and the amount of calories that you burn per day, because your body will try to compensate, especially after a couple months of being in a calorie deficit, by reducing your activity levels. But by keeping a consistent step count, you prevent that from happening. But nonetheless, you keep getting results and you make it take a lot longer for your body to hit a plateau, right? And of course, your diet has to be dialed in. I've had plenty of times in my life where I was doing 10 to 15,000 steps a day, strength training 3 to 4 days a week, but I was eating way too many calories and I did not lose fat. And I was bloated and all that other stuff. So you do need to make sure that all these things are dialed in, and we need to make it sustainable, which is the point of this course. But I also understand that learning from modules alone is not enough, which is why you have the community to ask questions. And if that's still not, and as well as the occasional group calls we have in the calendar, and if that is not enough and you need personalized one-to-one coaching, obviously I'll attach the link for the actual, in-depth one-on-one coaching with myself and or my team below, so you can learn more about that. But I think that you can get a good, you can get really good results from the course alone before you even jump into the coaching. It's really just if you need that accountability and customization right off the bat that you would jump into the coaching in month 1. Or you've already seen like there's so much value here, it's legit, let's just do it. Boom, no problem, let's jump in. But if you're like, hey man, I don't know if I'll ever have the money for coaching, no problem. Literally the course and the modules and the subsequent modules and us answering your question in the group calls, we want to make that so that that's enough for you if you have the time to go through all the modules and learning and customization on your own and hold yourself accountable and use the group to hold you accountable. That's my intention with the course, is to make it intrinsically valuable, and only the people who are like, okay, I don't really have time to go through all these modules per se, and I'd rather that they just customize it for me instead of having to put the mental energy to do it myself because I'm working a lot. I'll just pay them to do the coaching. I've seen that they're legit. Obviously, if that's the case, then the coaching link is below. Okay, so Exercise 101 module goes way more in depth into this, but essentially, the training for fat loss and muscle growth is very similar, but there are only a few differences between training for fat loss and training for muscle growth. The main differences are in the diet and step count, as I mentioned before. If you're trying to gain muscle, you should either be at maintenance or in a surplus, and you shouldn't do too many steps, but you also shouldn't do so too little, right? And I'll tell you exact parameters. And if you're trying to lose fat, obviously you need to be in a calorie deficit between your diet and step count and train for strength, maybe a little less frequently, like 3 times a week instead of 4, but 4 still works really well for fat loss, and I'll explain that in a second. So if you want to gain optimal size, muscle-wise, size and strength with minimal fat gain, you should get 6,000 to 8,000 steps a day while being in a calorie surplus. And again, nutrition modules for more info on this. If you want to lose fat optimally, then you should be getting 10,000 to 15,000 steps a day. Now, if that sounds like way too much, you're only doing 2,000 to 3,000 right now, you're working 12 hours a day, you got 10 kids, and it's impossible for you to do like a little bit more. If you're only doing 2,000 to 3,000 and you sit in front of a desk all day, even if you just up it to like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, that will still make a difference, okay? Especially when you're a beginner. And if you haven't been consistent in a long time, your steps haven't been consistent in a long time, even just upping it by a little bit will make a difference, but eventually you want to get to the point where you're doing more. So you might, let's say you're currently doing 2 to 3K, and you're like, you know what, when you're all I have time for is to go for like a 5 to 10 minute walk in the morning and maybe another 5 to 10 minute walk later in the day, I'm only going to get like 10, 20 minutes of walking a day. Okay, no problem. Now you're getting about 4,000 to 6,000 steps a day, or this, which is a little bit more than you were doing before, and you fix your diet and you start strength training, guess what? You're actually going to get pretty good results, definitely for the first month. Second month, you're still going to get decent results. Third month, you'll get some slight results, mostly recomp where your waist size shrinks and you're gaining muscle and losing fat at the same time, but not so much like scale weight dropping like in the first month or a little bit in the second month. But if you can then, because you're going to be in momentum by that point, you're going to have a lot more energy, you're going to be getting your 12-hour workday done more efficiently to where you're going to maybe only have to work 8 hours to get the same amount done, which we've seen a lot. There's a lot of guys whose efficiency has gone up because their energy levels have gone up. Then guess what? Now you got an extra 4 hours to work out and walk, or spend time with your family, or a combination thereof, or sleep more, which will also help you with your fat loss. Sleep is very important. We'll talk about that more in the modules to come. But then let's say you up your steps to 6 to 8K. Now you're going to keep getting results in month 3. Then let's say after month 3, boom, you're already down like a good 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 pounds. No problem. Maybe now you start walking 10K steps a day. So it's a process. I'm not expecting you to go from 2 to 3K to 10 to 15K overnight. I'm just telling you optimal is 10 to 15K. But if that's not realistic for you, then don't set your goals too high from the beginning. Work your way up to it. Don't say my goal is overnight I'm going to go from 2 to 3K to 10 to 15K. Say, hey, my goal is to go overnight from 2 to 3K to 4 to 5K, maybe 6K, right? My goal is after 2 months, I'm going to try to get to 6 to 8K, and my goal is after 3 to 4 months, I'm going to get to 10K. Okay, great. That's very realistic. Within 3 to 4 months, I'd be surprised if you didn't hit that goal, right? I'm very much expecting you to be able to hit that goal because you build up over time. That's how these things work. Like, let's say that somebody wanted to read 100 pages of Quran a day. Well, that's a very audacious goal, but they're not even reading 1 right now, or they're barely reading 1 right now. No problem. They start by reading 2, they start by reading 5, they might start by reading 10, and you kind of work your way up until eventually you're hitting 100. Now, again, 10K steps a day doesn't take as long as 100 pages of Quran a day. But the point being, I mean, you could read Surah Al-Baqarah twice, mashallah. But the point is, like, whenever you're working up to a goal, again, some things can happen overnight. Like, for instance, somebody who's not praying 5 times a day, they need to start praying 5 times a day overnight right now, because if they die, that's very dangerous to die in a state of not praying 5 times a day. And the risk and punishment for that, as far as what I've learned from the Sheikh, you can double check, is Jahannam. So obviously, don't risk Jahannam. That's way worse than being obese, is going to hell for eternity, right? However, with some things like steps, I understand it's going to take some time to build up to it. Anyways, enough of a tangent with that. Let's move on to the next thing. So there are a couple more nuances. When you're trying to lose fat, you're going to be in a deficit, which makes it a little bit more dangerous to train heavy because you have less water retention, your body's a little less recovered, a little bit more depleted. So it's going to be harder for you to increase the weight every single week. But because you're getting lighter, more energetic, and everything else every single day because you're losing weight, it might be easier for you to get personal records with how many reps you do with the same weight, or how many reps you do with a lighter weight, or how many sets you're able to do, how short you're able to keep the rest periods because your conditioning is becoming better, your cardio is becoming better because you're losing weight, and you're probably doing more cardio than, even if it's just walking, than somebody who's trying to bulk up. When somebody's trying to bulk up, they're in a surplus, their cardio is not as good because they're gaining weight every single week, so their cardio is going down, even if they're still doing 6,000 to 8,000 steps to maintain and gain minimal fat, or even lose fat while they're gaining the muscle. Well, guess what? And then you're also going to have more water retention, so it's going to be safer and easier for you to train heavy, so it's going to be easier for you to hit weight PRs versus because your conditioning is down, you might be breathing hard after just 10 reps, so we're getting rep PRs might be harder because your lungs are your limiting factor because your cardio is going down because you're gaining weight. So it might be easier for you to hit personal records with the weight. But when people say, oh, light weights is better for fat loss, heavy weights is better for gaining muscle, that's false. It's simply just a correlation between how you're going to feel when you're in a fat loss phase versus a muscle growth phase, and which PRs might be easier to hit and safer to hit, as I just explained. But there's no reason for you to be thinking that you have to train sets of 30 when you're cutting. No, you can still be hitting sets of 10 to 12, even 8s. And again, we go a little deeper into like reps inside of the Exercise 101 module. And if you guys want further breakdowns on that, I am always happy to do further breakdowns for any questions you guys have, whether it's in the Q&A, whether it's in the community, just typing it out or shooting you a quick video, whether it's in a future module we come out with mid-month or in each monthly release. So again, my goal here is to provide as much value as possible in this course community for you. So keep the questions coming. I want you to get the best results possible and for me to offer you and everybody else as much value as possible by answering the common questions and even just individual questions. And my coaches and I will always be on it with answering these questions, inshallah. Okay. So again, there's a couple reasons why training for muscle growth is still good for fat loss when you're in a fat loss phase and you're doing your calorie deficit and your steps. Again, building muscle and strength boosts your metabolic rate because muscle itself burns calories. After you work out, there's something called exercise post-oxygen consumption after a lifting session or a strength training session, which is colloquially referred to as the afterburner effect, which means that you're going to be burning more calories thereafter, which also helps you lose fat. Your insulin sensitivity goes up because your muscles become more insulin sensitive and start pulling carbohydrates from your bloodstream, which also improves your nutrient partitioning, so less of those carbohydrates are potentially, leading to a surplus that may be causing you to gain fat. So you end up losing more fat intrinsically as a result because your nutrient partitioning is up. Because your insulin sensitivity goes up, your A1C and your blood markers for diabetic or pre-diabetic get better. So there's a lot of reasons to be doing strength training and training for muscle and strength, and how it's going to help with your metabolism, your hormones, your blood work, your even stress levels, as long as you're not overdoing it, your insulin sensitivity, your body composition, your fat loss, everything, your metabolism I mentioned. Also, lifting is going to preserve muscle in a calorie deficit to ensure that you exclusively lose fat and don't lose muscle. See, a big mistake people make is if they don't do any kind of strength training while they're doing their steps or cardio and while they're doing their calorie deficit diet, they will lose weight, but some of that weight will be muscle because they're not eating enough protein, which we talk about in the diet module, and they're not doing enough strength training to preserve that muscle. And so part of what they lose muscle, part is fat, and then your metabolism slows down, then you hit a plateau and you didn't lose much fat as you thought, and you look worse after you finish cutting, or you look like the same pear shape that you were before, but just smaller. But if you lift, then you will look way better once you lose the fat because you actually have muscle underneath. Your metabolism won't slow down, or at least it's a lot less likely to slow down, or it'll slow down a lot slower, which means you have a lot more longevity on the cut, and everything you lose will be exclusively fat. You won't lose any muscle at all, which obviously means that you're going to lose more fat over the long term. Even if the scale didn't change as much, you don't want to see the scale going down because you lost muscle. You want to see the scale going down because you lost exclusively fat. So this is also very important. When you lift, your testosterone growth hormone levels go up, which helps you burn fat and get lean as well, helps you burn more calories, helps you to regulate your appetite, helps to boost your mood and your sense of well-being. It enhances your overall hormonal balance because the more testosterone you have, the less cortisol you're going to have, and growth hormone helps to increase your thyroid. Testosterone growth hormone, again, it's just a positive feedback loop of positive hormones. And then the other thing is that functional bodybuilding, which is kind of what I incorporate within a lot of the routines, especially as we get more advanced, and strength training work synergistically to help balance out the stabilizers, muscles, etc., which again is going to help with your posture, injury prevention, being more functional, more fit, etc. And we don't want to neglect any of those things. So again, go to the fat loss versus muscle growth triangle module for more, as well as the exercise 101. Okay, So as I mentioned before, if you only train 2 days a week, this is going to be, too few, unless you're in a period of massive time constraints and stress, which we talk about, or as I mentioned before, the martial artist who's sparring, every day otherwise, and he's just using strength training for maintenance, but he can't really afford to be that sore all the time. Now, after your first 1 to 3 months of training, then month 4 to 6 and beyond, after you've built that foundation for like 1 to 3 months of strength training at least 3 days a week, then you could go down to 2 to maintain. And again, we're going to be adding combat sports training later down the road in this course. And we actually have a couple different routines that we use with our coaching clients, which are a 3-day, 4-day, and 7-day martial arts routine. And I could even make a 2-day martial arts routine if we have some martial artists who, after putting that first 3 months in this course in, they want that routine. I'm happy to make some custom routines for you guys that we could put in the module release that month as well, inshallah. So we're going to do. So 3 days is going to be optimal for most people, as I mentioned. 4 days is optimal for most people as well. 5 days or more is too much for most people unless you're advanced and you have really good recovery and genetics. And again, I have a 5-day routine in this month 1, initial release of modules for you to be able to take advantage of as well, inshallah. Now the caveat to this is some of you might be thinking, oh, I only have to walk 3 days a week. The other days I can sit in front of my desk for all 16 hours of my waking day and then sit on the couch for the other 2 hours of my waking day with my family. No, that's not going to be optimal for fat loss or muscle growth, actually, because muscle growth, you need to get blood flow and it's better to be active and you don't want to gain fat while you're in the process of gaining muscle. But especially for fat loss, you need to go for a walk every day, 7 days a week. Walking is not training. It's just exercise and being active and healthy. And you're going to get an ROI beyond fitness. Remember, walking is good for your posture, your energy levels, your blood flow, your overall health, getting oxygen to your brain, being more creative, efficient at work, making more money as a result, being in a better mood around your family so you're a better father and husband, being better in your ibadah because of all those benefits, such that you have a better connection with Allah. You can even look at, the beauty of the creation of Allah and have gratitude to Allah and thank Allah for creating you and for creating this world, and listen to Surah Rahman while you're going for your walks, or any surah that you want, or any Islamic lecture you want. Or you can even answer emails while you walk. You can get an under-the-desk treadmill with a standing desk while you're doing your walks. There's no excuse not to walk. It's only going to benefit you in every other area of your life. And if you don't want to go for walks every day, then you're just being lazy. Now, of course, if you're a brother in a wheelchair, there are some exceptions. If you just tore your ACL, there are some exceptions. But every able-bodied brother should be going for a walk every single day. It's only going to benefit you in every area of your life, inshallah, in addition to fitness. All right. So I know this intro to the intro is quite long. We're already at a good 27 minutes, but I just want to make sure, and some of you might have skipped this video, but if you're watching this far, appreciate you listening to my rants and tangents. Hope it was valuable and entertaining and interesting for you. So lastly, before we go into the routines themselves, I think this is the last thing before we actually go into the routines. Yes. So there are 4 different setups for your equipment that you're going to have. You're either going to have no equipment whatsoever, which means you're going to have to go with a 3-day bodyweight only. And the bodyweight only is actually just, alternating days with 1 rest day in between, where you're obviously still going to go for walks and you're still welcome to stretch and stuff like that. So with the 3-day bodyweight only routine, again, it's good for strength and fat loss, and you're still stimulating every muscle in your body using body weight only. And then later down the road, if you're open to get like pull-up bar and other stuff like that, there's a lot of other cool stuff you can do. If you have like a calisthenics park near you, there are other things we can do as well. But of course, I still recommend that you get at least some equipment, because that gives us just so many more options and better loading patterns, progressive overload, everything else, which is going to get you much better results across both muscle growth and fat loss. But you will still get pretty good results. Like the first month, you can get 80 to 90% of the results of somebody who's doing weight training, even if you don't have any weights at all. But that gap becomes greater and greater month by month, and you have to get very creative with how you train if you want to continue to not have equipment, versus if you just get some dumbbells, then month 2 and month 3, you'll also get about 80 to 90% of the results, maybe even higher, of somebody who's got gym access. But month 4 and beyond, that's when we need more than just dumbbells, more than just a pull-up bar, more than just some bands and a foam roller, if you want to keep getting optimal results. But again, we've had plenty of people who lost a bunch of fat, like who lost 20 to 30 pounds in 90 days, who lost, 40 plus pounds in 6 months with minimal equipment, right? So I'm not saying that you're not going to get results at all. I'm just saying over time, and obviously we have the module in the Exercise 101 on how to build your ultimate halal home gym, of how to do that, so we can eventually progress. And again, it doesn't have to take up a bunch of space. If you don't have a lot of space, that's fine. There's a lot of like space efficient things we can do to really build things out and expand. I will still continue to provide calisthenics routines, but I just want to be transparent with you about the fact that while I will give you all the calisthenics support you need, because you're a valued member of our course and I want to make sure that you have exactly what you need to keep getting results for the long term, I also will always encourage you to get better results for the long term by getting more equipment, because it is going to be better for you in a way that's realistic, of course. So again, if adjustable dumbbells is all you can get, no problem. But again, we'll talk about that later. I don't want to go into too many tangents because I'm already taking too long to explain these things. So we're going to keep moving. Okay. If you're dead set on calisthenics, use this really basic routine for month 1, and we can always go more complex in month 2 and beyond, inshallah. And again, like I said, I'm always happy to add more stuff. And as I just went on a long tangent with, weights is better if you're open to it, even if it's just a little bit of equipment. Now, speaking of a little bit of equipment, let's say you just have dumbbells, but you do not have a bench, a pull-up bar, or anything else. I have 2 routines for you to choose with: home limited equipment, dumbbell only routines. Consider the Exercise 101 module on how to build out more of your home gym. You should at least try to get a foam roller, bands, and maybe consider a bench, a pull-up bar, and then you'll have a very good setup. Those are some of the basics you can get. You don't necessarily need a squat rack or a barbell or anything like that. And then, of course, I have another one that's dumbbells, bench, pull-up bar, and an apartment or a hotel gym, so kind of those types of things. So I have a 3-day hotel workout, which is great for travel, even if you have full gym access normally. And I have the 4-day at-home home gym routine. And of course, if you have full gym access, we got the main routines: 3-day time efficient, 4-day time efficient, 3-day OG main, 4-day OG main, and also the 5-day advanced, which I forgot to list here as well. And then we also have bodyweight backup and the hotel gym workout. So bodyweight backup is awesome. We use this with a lot of clients, especially a lot of like busy entrepreneurs, even like busy doctors who also, might have a young child at home, who are working 12 hours a day in the hospital or longer, and then they come home and they got to take care of a kid, whatever it may be. We have plenty of busy professionals and entrepreneurs who are on those bodyweight backups that they use whenever they can't make it to the gym, which does happen pretty frequently, to help them be as consistent as possible. So again, all these routines can be modified for your equipment level, and I'll briefly explain how in the course as well, inshallah. All right, so I'm going to dive into this next module after a quick break. Hope that info was digestible, and inshallah, I'll see you in the next module where we go into all the routines. Assalamu alaikum, and any questions you have, let us know in the community, even after this initial module. Like, I know that this module I went to a lot of tangents, so any questions you have, jot them down. Go through the rest of this, mini course inside of the course, like on exercise. And if you still have those questions at the end of it, let us know in the community. Or if you're just burning, you got to drop that question now, then I suppose you can feel free as well, because I don't want to stifle you from asking questions. I want to help you as much as I can. All right, we're going to take a brief break, and I'll see you in the next one, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.